I finally blocked out the time to get my Titan all the way through the campaign and unlock all the prismatic abilities for him, and during that process, I absolutely fell in love with the new exotic chest piece, the Hazardous Propulsion. This exotic is a winning combination of hilarious and effective. So a lot of times you get like one or the other, you know, an exotic that's extremely useful but simultaneously bland, like Stompies. Other times, you get an exotic that does something really cool or offbeat, but unfortunately is highly situational and not altogether optimal to run. So Hazardous Propulsion is the full package here. It brings a lot to the table in both categories, and in today's video I'm going to break it down for you. I'll have both PvP and PvE footage in the background, and just as a preview here, let me assure you that this exotic is extremely good in PvE content, and I have a killer build around it. And I'll have full footage at the end of the video showing all the mods, aspects, fragments, etc. So if you wanted to copy it for your own personal use in PvE, you are more than welcome to just skip to that part and do exactly that. All right, let's get into the video. So I decided to go ahead and just grab one of these from Rahul. You know, I've got a lot of exotic ciphers and I leveled him up pretty quickly, all things considered. So polite reminder that Rahul's third page is where you can focus exotics that you've never had drop before now. It's honestly much simpler than the Lost Sector grind that we used to have. But once you get your hands on the Hazardous Propulsion, here's what you need to know about it. It does two things primarily. So first, getting precision hits and precision final blows charges the chest piece with Exodus rockets. You can stack up to 6 rockets in the chest piece. At any time that you use your class ability, whether it's a barricade or a thruster dodge, you will activate all stored rockets. So they'll pop straight up out of your back, and then they'll zip off at the nearest target that you're facing. Now that's important. Note that you can't dodge away from someone and expect the rockets to fire backwards out of your back and hit your pursuer. That would be cool. I did test it out, didn't work. They'll always fly in the direction that you're facing and then track targets in that general direction. These rockets do kinetic damage, so bear that in mind. They're a kinetic damage source. In PvP, they will do 28 damage per rocket for a maximum output of 168 damage with a full volley. So that's not a one-hit kill on its own. It's a ton of damage, though. But there are ways that you can lean into it more. You know, I tried Strand builds, Arc Titan builds, but ultimately I landed on a prismatic Titan approach to PvP, leveraging Drenger's Lash with the thrusters to create a tangle that detonates and suspends nearby targets. This allowed me to bait corners really well. Although the full Strand build also worked quite nicely too, just deploying the barricade to suspend targets and then watch them helplessly dangle as they took a full volley of rockets to the friggin' face. The second thing this chest piece does is that for every rocket you land on a target, you'll get a stack of a damage buff to any rocket attacks that you follow it up with for several seconds. So this does include rocket sidearms, which is great. Those are all the hotness right now in PvE anyways. And both legendary and exotic rocket launchers also receive this buff, so it applies to like lasting impressions. But one thing that's different and noteworthy is that it applies to Deathbringer as well. And earlier buffs, like if you were running an Argent Ordnance mod, they used to only apply to one singular Deathbringer purple ball out of the entire volley. You know, every time you fire the Deathbringer, there's a shower of these purple explosives that rain down. It used to only buff one of those per damage buff. But this rocket buff from Hazardous Propulsion applies to all of the Deathbringer Seekers in the volley, so it's cumulatively a massive damage increase. I've used it a lot in PvE content so far with great success, but this week I think I'm going to be taking this build into the raid to test out some damage potential against bosses. And I can't wait, and maybe I'll do a follow-up on that specific topic as well. One thing to note, charging stacks of Exodus rockets happens fast. I mean super fast. So fast that you'll often have an entire volley loaded and ready to go before your class ability is even cooled back down from the last time you used the Exodus rockets. So I do highly recommend using other sources to get your class ability cooled down more quickly. So for me, that meant running max resilience, but then also some other variables as well, including the prismatic fragment Facet of Hope, which makes your class ability recharge more quickly when you have an elemental buff like Woven Mail. Couple that with Facet of Purpose, and we're getting Woven Mail with every orb that we pick up. I'm using a Strand Siphon mod on my helmet and a Reaper mod on my class item, so I'm making orbs very regularly since I'm doing lots of strand damage and using my thrusters often, so orbs are dropping left and right. Then I'm using the Insulation mod on my boots so that each orb immediately restores some thruster energy as well. And now we're in business, and we've got a thruster cooled down every time we need it. Boom. I'll note that in PvP there's no real utility to the rocket damage buff after using the Exodus rockets. That's almost exclusively a PvE game changer, but the usefulness of the rocket volley in PvP alone is definitely enough of a reason to run it. And honestly, I found it best to use my thrusters whenever I needed them, even if I only had 2 or 3, honestly, sometimes even just 1 rocket primed. Sometimes that 1 rocket was all I needed to win that duel alongside the movement of the thruster dodge. So don't feel like you absolutely have to charge up all 6 rockets in PvP in order to use the propulsion. Just use what you've got when you need it. And I tried hand cannons, sidearms, auto rifles, and pulse rifles to charge these up. Honestly, I felt like the pulse was the best way to charge it up, but they all worked just fine. But you'll definitely want an SMG, sidearm, or hand cannon for those close quarters fights when you actually deploy the rockets, because you're probably going to be right up in their faces when you pop the volley, so you'll want something that's easy to land a follow-up shot or two in conjunction with the volley. And that is the review, y'all. I highly encourage you to pursue this exotic and try it out. Make a full build around it and just full send on it. That's really the only way to do it. And if you do, I think you'll find it just as hilariously fun and effective as I did. Thanks so much for watching the video today. If you enjoyed it, then please consider leaving a like, as that's the best free way to support the content here on YouTube, and consider subscribing for additional Destiny content. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you in the Crucible.
Like a Titan of the first pillar. I could not ask for a better victory. Shut the enemy down. Your enemy. Don't be lost. They have advantage. Double down. This is one.